This is our time. The main news at this hour. In the studio, Oleg Borisov. Hello. Attack drones, ballistic and cruise missiles. Last night, Ukraine was under a massive combined attack. The main strike targeted energy facilities, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The aggressor also attacked civilian infrastructure. 10 regions were affected. All relevant services are working to restore power and water supply. Russia continues its terrorist war, and it is important that every such vile attack on civilians brings concrete consequences, sanctions, and real pressure back to Russia. We expect that America, Europe, and the G7 countries will not ignore this. This is Moscow's desire to destroy everything. New steps are needed to put pressure on Russia's oil and gas industry and its finances. Secondary sanctions are also needed against those who sponsor this war. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram. For the nighttime attack on Ukraine, Russia used strike UAVs, as well as air dash, land dash, and sea-launched missiles, according to the Ukrainian Air Force. A total of 705 aerial attack assets were recorded. According to preliminary data, 623 targets were shot down or suppressed. Specifically, these included Caliber cruise missiles, Iskander-K, Kh-101, and Kh-25 missiles, Kh-59. 2 people were killed, and 17 were injured, including 6 children. The Russian army attacked Zaporizhzhia with drones and missiles. About 30 explosions were recorded in the city. One of the drones destroyed a dormitory. More than 20 apartment buildings and private houses were damaged.
Everything just went out all at once, just like that. The TVs, all the windows, everything just blew out, even onto the balcony, right out of the balcony. It's a nightmare in there, really.
That's what I'm saying. I sat up all night, counted 20. I couldn't count any more, because it just kept happening. Boom. It hit, exploded. Right here, a Shahid drone flew in and exploded. It just kept going non-stop, started at around 2:30 and didn't stop until 5 o'clock. It's impossible, such a racket. I don't know when it will ever end.
12 people were injured as a result of the Russian Federation's attack on the Kherson region. Among them are 2 children, according to the Regional Military Administration. In the past 24 hours alone, the Russians attacked more than 40 settlements in the region with drones, aircraft, and artillery. Among them were Kherson, Berislav, and Chornobevka. As a result of the strikes, 4 apartment buildings, 9 private houses, an administrative building, a church, a cell tower, and several cars were damaged. The Donetsk region was also under Russian attack. 2 people were killed and 5 more were injured, according to the Regional Military Administration. In the Pokrovsk district, 5 houses and a store were damaged. In Kramatorsk, 5 houses, 2 apartment buildings, an administrative building, a gas pipeline, and cars were damaged. In the Bakhmut district, 7 houses were affected by the destruction. In total, the Russians shelled settlements in the Donetsk region 20 times in the past day. 274 people have been evacuated from the front line. Among them, 24 children. Ladyzhyn in the Vinnytsia region was left without heat and water as a result of Russian shelling. A 7-year-old child and 4 adults were injured. The city is setting up outdoor water columns and organizing the delivery of technical water. People from destroyed homes will be provided with temporary housing. Last night, Ukraine was under a combined massive attack. Russia shelled energy and civilian infrastructure. The main direction of the attack was the west of the country. For example, in Prikopatya, an energy infrastructure facility was damaged by a strike, and in the Lviv region, 2 such facilities were damaged. In addition, explosions were recorded in other regions of Ukraine. Dnipro. The enemy attacked with ballistic missiles, and air defense systems were also active in the Kyiv region. Trade war, Russia's aggression against Ukraine, and possible ways to end it. These topics were discussed in South Korea by US President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping. This is their first meeting since the start of Trump's second presidential term. The next meeting was agreed to be scheduled for April 2026. After a 2-hour dialogue, the heads of state left without making any statements to the press. However, after the meeting, Donald Trump reduced tariffs on goods from China by 10%. Now the total tariff will be 47%. In addition, the head of the White House confirmed he discussed the war in Ukraine with Xi. We will work together to see if we can manage to do something. We agree that both sides are stuck in the fight. And sometimes you have to let them fight it out. But she will help us, and we will work together on Ukraine. There's nothing more we can do. The US is resuming nuclear weapons testing for the first time in 33 years. US President Donald Trump sent the corresponding order to the Pentagon just minutes before his meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping began. Trump's decision came after China expanded its nuclear arsenals and after Russia announced the testing of a cruise missile with a nuclear engine and warhead, as well as a nuclear torpedo. The last time the United States tested nuclear weapons was in 1992. It seems like all of them are conducting nuclear tests. We have more nuclear weapons than anyone else. And we are not conducting tests. We stopped doing that many years ago. But since others are conducting tests, I think it's appropriate for us to do the same. Donald Trump, President of the United States. Putin announced tests of the Poseidon underwater drone with a nuclear power unit. The Russian dictator first mentioned it back in 2018. A year later, the Russian Ministry of Defense released a video showing Poseidon's tests. 6 years have passed since then. Putin called the recent launch a huge success and reassured the propagandists. There are no analogs to the Russian underwater drone. Why did Moscow decide to announce a whole series of weapons tests? We cover this in our report.
For the first time, Russia managed to launch a nuclear power unit, which Poseidon operated on for a certain period, Putin told Kremlin propagandists. According to the Russian dictator, this drone is more powerful than the Russian missile Sarmat, and, as usual, there are no analogs to it and never will be. By the way, the dictator once again promised that the heavy silo-based intercontinental ballistic missile RS-28 Sarmat will soon be put on combat duty. He has been reporting this with enviable persistence since 2020. In
June 2023, during a meeting with graduates of military academies. In the near future, the Sarmat systems will be put on combat duty. And already in September, the head of Roscosmos, Yuri Borisov, claimed that they were supposedly already on combat duty. In 2022. In May, at Roscosmos, its former head Ladyzhyn promised that the Sarmats would soon be put on combat duty. Almost 50. And in April 2021, the Russian dictator told the Federal Assembly that by the end of 2022, an entire regiment would be put on combat duty, which would be armed with Sarmat ballistic missiles, according to a publication by Defense Express.
Putin claims that the missile's range is unlimited and its flight path is unpredictable. But when it comes to the fact that the Burevestnik tests in August 2019 at a test site in the Arkhangelsk region ended in failure and the deaths of 7 people, the Russian dictator prefers not to mention it. In addition to the Burevestnik, Russia also announced the launch of Yars and Siniva intercontinental ballistic missiles from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome during nuclear tests. All of this is a show of force meant to disrupt aid to Ukraine, experts are convinced.
The fact is, these scare tactics are nothing more than information operations. The second launch of the Orshnik was unsuccessful, and the Burevestnik only flies in words. Putin is simply using Naryshkin's ideas, which he stole from the days of the Cuban Missile Crisis in May. There is no threat of an attack on NATO. Lavrov's statements about security guarantees from Russia for NATO are part of the Kremlin's information game. So far, Trump and his nuclear submarine are countering this game better than anyone in the West. Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The Russian weaponry that Putin boasts about does not match the stated specifications, according to experts. The Russian military-industrial complex can't cope without Western components, and import substitution isn't helping.
Usually, in such situations, a country's fate is determined by whether it has any allies. Allies who can provide it with substantial material support, financial aid, or military assistance. It turned out that Russia has no one. China only sells some components and doesn't really go out of its way to help. To somehow help Russia develop. It doesn't give Russia any credit either, and Russia is starting to scrape together its last remaining resources. Apparently, even those aren't enough anymore. In fact, it's been said for a long time that there are problems in the military industry. I think it was already a year and a half ago.
Analysts suggest that this new round of demonstrative saber-rattling is Moscow's response to the discussion about possibly supplying American Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. For years, Moscow has used training launches and tests of nuclear delivery systems to blackmail the West.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.